Hello, everybody. Welcome to the virtual edition of our year-round screening program, Film Independent Presents. My name is Josh Welsh. I'm president of Film Independent, and I just want to say I am so excited for today's conversation. Earlier, we were able to screen the film, The Glorias, and today we have a conversation around the film. Thank you to, before we get started, I've got a couple thank yous I want to share. Film Independent Presents Goes to Washington is made possible with thanks to Gather by Events DC. I want to thank our incredible lead sponsor, the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, without whom we wouldn't be able to do any of this, so thank you to the HFPA. Our virtual screening partner, Vision Media, thank you for being our technical home, and our media partner, the Los Angeles Times, thank you. Also, huge thanks to Roadside Attraction for letting us screen the film and host today's conversation. And with that, I want to introduce our friend and our guest moderator for today, the one and only, the curvy critic, Carla Renata. Carla, take it away.
Thank you, Josh, for that fantabulous introduction. I appreciate it. And I wish, along with everyone else watching, a very, very speedy recovery to Miss Gloria Steinem. I know what that feels like to have surgery at the last minute. I had a root canal yesterday, so the fact that I can talk and I don't look like a chipmunk is a whole nother situation. But let me introduce you to who we do have. We have an Oscar-nominated, Tony Award-winning director, Miss Julie Taymor, on the scene. Now, I just have to share, Julie and I do have some history. So if this conversation seems a little, casual and off the cuff, that would be why. And our history is Julie Taymor directed me in the original production of the original Los Angeles production, of The Lion King, which played in Los Angeles for 3 years. So there's that. But welcome, Miss Julie. How you doing today?
I'm fine, Chenzi. Sorry.
I love you for that. I love you so much for that. I love you so much for that. I really do.
No, I'm good considering. I wish Gloria were with us, but I heard she had a good operation. That everything went okay.
Oh, good.
And we're what are we? Are we tonight? We're going to see this highly theatrical event after we speak, right? Later tonight, we're going to see the battling of the bulge or whatever. No, so the spine's very thin, so the other one's bulky, so we'll see.
Yes, I'm not looking forward to that. Let me tell you, that situation, that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, we won't go there.
But yeah, we'll talk about it soon enough. But I want to talk to you right now about the Glorias. I was there at the Sundance Film Festival when this screened. Mm-hmm. And I remember that day very well because it was also the day that Kobe Bryant's life was perished in the crash.
Right.
And it was also a huge, huge response to the film. There were tears, there were cheers. Everybody absolutely loved it. And it was an audience that was primarily full of women, just so you know, because I know you couldn't really see because of the lights in your eyes, but it was an audience primarily full of women, young women, old women, feminist women, women that didn't even know what feminism was. They were all there.
Right.
I loved it because and the moment that really got everybody going was that very first moment in the film where Gloria steps off the bus and she's just standing there with that, that big old buckle and those jeans and her hands on her hips. And that lets you know right then and there what kind of person and what kind of ride you're going to be in for. So I just want to pose the question to you about because the Greyhound bus was like its own character throughout this film.
Yes.
It was like you used the Greyhound bus as an impetus to go through all these incarnations of her life. So let's just talk about what was the impetus in coming up with that to move Gloria's life through all those generations and decades.
It was the key because I had this wonderful book, My Life on the Road, which is not a normal movie structure. It doesn't have a beginning, a middle, and end in the sense of a drama. So forget it. But all you people have seen it, but forget that. There were all these disparate, extraordinary tales of my life on the road. So you sort of start with the problem that, okay, she's going to go to India, she's South Dakota, Chicago, Minneapolis, New York, Houston, Miami, blah, blah, blah. How am I? And I'm going to definitely have to have multiple ages because it's from age 6 to age 86. So how do I work these things together? And I the idea of having the 4 Glorias, or it was 3, and then I realized 12-year-old girls are not 6-year-old girls. I'm going to have two different age girls for that. They're really not the same. So once I committed to that, I was saying, I don't want to have to be linear, and I'm going to move around in time. And Gloria Steinem's voice in her book, the first person narrative, she constantly talks about what she would have done, could she have done this? Or, you could feel these conversations, these inner musings that were harsh on oneself or empathetic, various things. So I thought, what if I put these 4 women, these 4 parts of Gloria on the forever traveling out of time bus? Now, the Greyhound bus to me, as an American, is apple pie, more apple pie than anything. It represents freedom, travel. The Freedom Riders went on the Greyhound bus to the South. The Greyhound bus is really an archetypal image for self-revelation, journey, and escape, all kinds of things. So I use that highway with the yellow slash lines and the bus as a leitmotif, like in music, when you have a theme that keeps da-da-da-dum, 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 and then later, da-da-da-dum, later, it'll be later, you're going to hear that theme again. So the audience knows when they see the black and white Greyhound bus that we're going into an inner reality, an inner landscape. It could be reminiscing, it could be mocking each other. Sometimes it's just the loneliness of Gloria feeling alone. One time, as you all know, all those Gloria haters are all on the bus, all the Phyllis Schlafly to the 10th, 1100th power are there staring at her because she should rot in hell from the Larry King show. But she sits there, she looks at them, and then you have Alicia, the younger Gloria, saying, did you ever want to have children? Oh no, another person asking her about marriage and children, but even herself. So that was the idea. It's a kind of boiling down of the overall, what could represent in a nutshell? I call it an ideograph. The Lion King, it was the circle, right? It was the circle of life, the first song, the sun, Mufasa's mask, the circle. It was the way Pride Rock circled out of the floor. It becomes, it's a unifying principle. And it becomes the structure upon which we can hang all these wonderful, becomes the Christmas tree, and all the other ornaments can be hung on it. That's a terrible, terrible, terrible image. But when I started saying hanging, no, it's not a Christmas tree at all. It's a bus.
I got you. It was a great analogy. You're being way too hard on yourself. So let's keep talking about this bus situation. When we were off camera, let's keep talking about that for a second. When we were off camera, you were sharing something that you guys were going to do with the Greyhound bus to promote the film coming out in conjunction with the election. And I was wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing that with our viewers and listeners today as well.
Well, we really wanted to be in the swing states right now, touring on a Greyhound bus, Gloria, myself, maybe Julianne, Alicia, whoever was available and could travel, and other women. And we wanted to be able to get out for women's groups or any groups. And really, this movie, if you all saw it, you'll tell me after. It's as much for men and it's as much for children. Forget the R rating. That makes me outraged, by the way, getting an R rating for this movie. But it's as much for young women, young boys, to see what their mamas, their grandmas, their aunties pulled off, and what they have what they have to lose. So we were going to be out there and doing this for groups and hopefully to raise awareness, but also to register people to vote. We really felt, bipartisan. It wasn't about going for one. We could never, and we would never do that with our movie. But we do feel you've got the right to vote. You better use it. That's really something that Gloria and I profoundly believe is what makes us Americans, is what makes a democracy. So.
Yeah, and one of the other things that you and Gloria have in common is that you both come from these really strong-willed, very laser-focused women, right? These women that sat back and they did not want to just settle, because I didn't know before I saw the film that Gloria's mom was a journalist.
Yeah.
And so she actually fulfilled what was unfulfilled for her mom through her existence and her being. So I loved learning about that in the film. I also didn't know, there were two moments that struck me really to my core. The one moment is when her father is supposedly going to have this dance-a-thon with the Andrews sisters singing, right? And they're a no-show. So it's raining, the Andrews sisters are a no-show, people are running to their cars, and there's this image of her amongst all these little twinkling lights dancing in the rain on her daddy's feet. It was such a tender, beautiful moment. I'll never forget that.
I'll never forget dancing on my daddy's feet. I mean, I just, that's what little 6-year-olds and up to probably 8, unless they really skinny and little, that's what we love. And her, Gloria talks about her father. This movie really gets her, and I think Tim Hutton and both Enid Graham for the mother and Tim Hutton are astounding, because he was, as she says, he was a real failure. He was a failure. He was irresponsible. The mother's issues have a lot to do with the fact that he didn't let her fulfill herself. And she ended up being the one who had to be responsible, take care of the bills, make sure a car was there, make sure that there was food to eat. And he was a dreamer. So of course a 6-year-old can love the father,
Yeah, there was a lot going on though, because in addition to being a 6-year-old who was in love with her dad and revered her mom, she also ended up being caretaker for her mom.
Yeah.
And for someone that is that young, that's a lot.
Well, and that does, I mean, I know this sounds just too pat, but that does answer to why Gloria didn't want a family. She'd already done it. Her father said travel is the best education. You can get married anytime. I mean, you've got all kinds of, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. It could be wonderful. She's just full of all of her father's. They're not Pollyanna, but it's a way of dealing with life. And so Gloria is a kind of hopeaholic, she's got that positive, but then because of her work and also because of her mother and what was repressed about her mother, she's also very aware of what can stop women easily. I mean, Gloria, I think it's amazing, the scene where she just can't speak on her first speaking,
engagement.
Well, it's not even an engagement. She went up on that stage with Dorothy Pitman Hughes and was terrible. I mean, seriously terrible. And
because she was a writer.
Speaking voice. She was a writer, but she really was a dancer. So, what she really wanted to do was not use her mouth or her pen at all. She really wanted to go be Fred Astaire, Shirley Temple, whatever, go out to Hollywood.
Right, which brings me to my next favorite moment. You led me right into it. Thank you, Miss Julie.
Okay.
My next favorite moment was the moment where she's in the black barbershop in Toledo, Ohio, and the little girl's teaching her how to tap. I kind of loved that. I love that.
I'm so glad you did. No one talks about it. And it's the key moment where you see Gloria just cross right out of one neighborhood or one racial barrier line as we would see it now. There is none. There is none for Gloria Steinem.
No, there wasn't. And
there never has been.
And I loved seeing that moment.
Because this wonderful little girl, African-American girl, sees this poor other little 12-year-old tapping on a pavement and says, "Why aren't you indoors?" And she says, "My mother can't stand the sound." "Why not?" And little Gloria doesn't answer her. She says, "Come on. I've got my older sister's got an extra pair of tap shoes." I have her sister's name be Shirley because of many Shirleys, Shirley Chisholm, Shirley Temple, whatever, the Shirleys. And when she walks into that barbershop, sure, all the African-American men turn around like, what the hell is she doing here? But they're generous. And the generosity.
That was pure comedy, because when they turned around, they were like, "Oh, Lord, this child about to get us in trouble. What is she doing here?" That made me laugh out loud. It was funny.
And she can't really tap dance very well. And sorry, Lulu Wilson, our darling Gloria, she had to learn just what she knew just for the movie. But she wasn't ever, I'm sorry, Gloria, she was never a great tap dancer. She just loved it. And this little girl, on the other hand, is one of the greatest tap dancers. She's like the Savion Glover of femaledom. And right now, I feel terrible because I can't, there's so many day players and people who would small parts that I don't remember their names. But we did a major search for that talent. She'd never acted before, and she's absolutely adorable in the scene where she meets Gloria. But there's this generosity that blows me away, you know.
Yeah, those were some moments that really resonated with me. And another key moment for me was the moment where she's on the train in India, right?
Yes.
So Gloria Steinem, and again, something that I didn't know about Gloria Steinem, because there's always so much focus here in America on her activism and Ms. Magazine and her doing the expose as a Playboy bunny and all these other things, right? But those types of things are not the focus of what you hear about when you hear her name. So when she's on that on that train in India, you see how her view of the world and how her view of humanity is colored by that experience, by the experience that she has with the girl in the barbershop, how she has the experience with her dad dancing on her shoes. So I'm just wondering for you, Julie Taymor, I know that you and Gloria both have this in common, that you both traveled and lived in Asia. Did those travels color your view of the world and humanity in which you live and navigate through now?
Absolutely. There's absolutely no me without 4 years in Indonesia. For me, it was my trial by fire. I was 20, 21, like Gloria, 20 years younger. I graduated Oberlin. I'd already done a lot of traveling, a lot. I from 14 or 15, I went on the experiment in international living to Sri Lanka. It was called Ceylon back then. I lived with a family. Then I graduated high school early and went to Paris for a year and lived with an older woman, 21 years old. I was 16, and we lived in the left bank, and I studied mime. So my French sucks because I didn't have to speak very much. I went to movies all the time. I went to the Cinematheque and learned about Kurosawa and Fellini and Ingmar Bergman, and, you know, got my real education in movies. But then this trip to Asia, when I was graduating college and had a fellowship in visual theater, experimental puppet theater to Eastern Europe, Indonesia, and Japan. And I was spending 3 months in Indonesia. I was supposed to spend a year in Japan, and I decided to stay in Indonesia. I stayed 4 years. I started a theater company of Javanese, Balinese, Sundanese masked dancers and actors and musicians. And we toured throughout Sumatra, Java, and Bali. So there'd be no Lion King, really. You know, it's, for me, working with Indonesian who are incredible artists and dancers. And when I lived there, which is over 40 years ago, film and television weren't the main mediums. Theater was. So theater was political. Theater was Shakespeare. They would do 9-hour plays, and the clowns would be the fools, like in Shakespeare. They would be critical of the society, of what was going on. They would talk about the factory that was taking jobs away from the farmers. It would talk about birth control. But then this epic stories like Shakespeare would be about kings and queens and, you know, courtiers and romance. So I learned a lot, everything, actually. It was really groundbreaking experience, like for Gloria in India, for me in Indonesia. And we recognized that right off the bat, that we had that kind of experience young. My mother and father, on the other hand, are the opposite of her parents, really. My mother wrote a book called Running Against the Wind, and she was a big politico in Massachusetts. She's now 99 and a half. And she started programs for women in politics in 3 or 4 universities in Massachusetts, and has the Betty Taymor Fund. And Gloria knows my mother. She knew of my mother way before me. So I have a mother who's a real role model mother, who did, I'm the youngest, and my father, who was great, said to her when I was about 15 or 14, I think he said, you know, she's gone. Go back, get your MA, your master's, whatever. So she did. She went back at 48 years old and got her master's in political science, and then ran for office, was a delegate. I mean, all kinds of stuff. I would canvass with her, and women would shut the door in her face and say, you know, go home and take care of your kids. And I would be there. And my mother would say, my daughter is right here with me. Ugh. My mom was way before women were out there. I mean, she's 99. So she had to do it when women didn't support women, were envious, didn't like it.
Your mom was a badass. She sounds like, wow. She
My
sounds like
mother
she,
is astounding.
well, so I'm not surprised that you end up being what you ended up being because you're a badass too. So there's
Oh,
that.
well. But you don't have to have a mom like that to be a whatever you call me. But you don't,
Yeah.
because I know plenty of people like Gloria who get there where they do it because they see how badly life has treated their parents, and they say, I'm not going to let that happen to me. I've got choice. Well, yeah, Gloria's father did tell her to go out. She could, like that scene. I love the scene with the phone scene. I love that scene with Alicia and Tim because, first of all, I just think they're terrific. But I also am so moved by Leo and his response where as he's saying, go to India, wow, so far away. And he says, you can get married anytime. And you see the tears in his eyes and how he knows what a lousy husband he was.
I
I
do
was layering.
I do love how supportive he was of her and her dreams and her aspirations. I do love that. I do love that he was the kind of dad that wasn't like, you know what? Why don't you just forget about that and just get married and have some kids and bake and, just be that person. I love that he was that person for her. I
Oh, it's
really, really do. And I love that you showed that because there's going to be some young lady, some little girl, some woman that is going to watch that in the Glorias, and it's going to be a pivotal moment for them because they are going to go, oh, this is what this looks like when you have this type of support from a parental unit. So thank you so much for including that. There are like 5,000 questions in here for you. So
okay.
I'm going to stop hogging all my time with you with my questions and give you some of their questions. Bianca Martinez wants to know, was it nerve-wracking making a film about such a public figure?
No, because Gloria is anything but nerve-wracking. She's so generous. She was so flabbergasted when I called her and said, I want to adapt your book. She said, what? That's not possible. It's not, it can't be done. But if anybody can do it, you can. She loved my movies. She loved Across the Universe and Frida. And then she was, of course, the theater stuff. She knew it all, Magic Flute, all of that. But she really trusted me. And so I didn't find it nerve-wracking. No.
Speaking of your other projects, Steve HC wants to know, there was a lot of abstract imagery in the film that I did not expect to see in this final product, making it quite unique and very much unlike the typical biopic. What prompted that?
Well, yeah, people say the Julieisms or the Julie things or the whatever they like to call it. I like to tell stories on multiple levels of reality. So I would say there are three in the Glorias. One is the dramatic, which is Julianne Moore, Bette Midler, Janelle Monáe, Lorraine Toussaint, acting. And we believe, we fall into this drama of it. Then there is the documentary archival footage, which is, I knew from the beginning would be very important. And you've all seen it. So, we went out there before there was even a script finished to do the March on Washington. We thought we were going to have a female president, so we thought this would be a celebration, that we would have gotten there. But obviously, that really changed radically. So for the Houston March, the March on Washington, I want to brag about because my wonderful editor, Sabine Hoffman, and Peter, our archival, names are going out, just whatever age. Anyway, he found color film footage, and rarely have you seen that of the Martin Luther King 1963 March on Washington. So once we had that, we could weave it together with our color footage. And you can't get more than 200 extras in a film with our budget. So we had these great women in Savannah, Georgia. They were called ladies from the the liberal ladies from the lowlands. A group of elder women. All those elder women in the Houston conference were these fabulous women who stayed till 4 a.m, thrilled to be with Bette Midler and Julianne Moore and to be there celebrating this, and a lot of other local extras. But that is not going to make 20,000 people. I found the real footage, as bad as it is, it's bad 70s video. I still find it more gritty and more resonant to see what those women on those planks, when you see that woman from the Hispanic caucus talking about mothers at the border. I mean, when you start, or you see a Coretta Scott King talking there, or you see the first ladies on the stage. I don't want to see actors, even with Phyllis Schlafly. I know Mrs. America made a whole big thing. I think the real Phyllis Schlafly is more terrifying than any actor, you know, so there's that. Now, getting to what he was saying, the third level of reality is the inner reality. It's dreams, hallucinations, projections, commentary that's going on in your mind. Like I always say, what would Hillary's movie be when Trump was stalking behind her at that debate? You know, she never said it it's a very good documentary, Hillary, that's on streaming.
It's on Hulu.
She said, oh my God, if she had said what she was thinking, she would have been lynched, whatever. She would have been thrown in jail, locked her up, killed. But I want to hear and see that movie. So what I did in the big tornado one that people are kind of mystified by, or they love it or they don't, is when the guy says that to the young Alicia Gloria, she's gobsmacked. She doesn't know what to say, just like in the taxi. So she just, when he says, you know, would you forgive our mail something or other if I call you an absolutely stunning sex object? So yes, that's a good turning point where Julianne can take her place because she's got her voice now. We know, you know, we've already seen it once or twice. We know that she says, oh, you'll speak your mind. It might get you into trouble. But still, Gloria Steinem is not an aggressive, in-your-face critic. When somebody comes at her, she always laughs, and with a smile, she'll have a response. So yes, she'll say the thing about the tie and the, you know, this and that. But I wanted to do what many women go through, which is, ooh, wouldn't I just like to take him in his chair and put him up, and menacing but whimsical. You know, it's not ball breaking or ball busting because it doesn't happen. But we know that guy with his good looks and his flirtations is thinking, what a bitch, she's not answering me. And then you take the word bitch and you rhyme it with witch, and we've all been there, especially women in power.
Absolutely.
How about Alexandria Cortez? What went on a couple of weeks ago on the steps, right? With the whatever that.
Yeah, guy. at the Capitol. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Well, I think he did call her a bitch, actually.
Yeah, he did. He did call her out of her name. He did.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. And all she did was speak what she was thinking or her mind. But women have for centuries had to not do that. And Gloria is of that ilk of that time. So I just wanted to take that head on, plus which I think uniforms are very interesting sexually. So this allowed me to use all four Glorias to show that there's pornography in Japan, and it's always with these little schoolgirls in their little uniforms. And then the imagination of what's under a burqa or a nun's habit or the handmaid tale. Whoosh, it flies up, and you've got that Marilyn Monroe moment where the wind, you know, the classic moment on the grate in New York City.
Yeah.
Where the subway grate, and she's holding it down. That is a rape, sorry, but it's a very poetic, you know, it is a violation. Rape is too hard a word for that, too harsh. But to be able to play with those levels of and the witches from Macbeth, you know, double toil and trouble, and they're just, it all lasts 2 seconds or 3 seconds, because you know when he comes back down and she says, can we rewind that please? And he asks the question again, and the young assistant to the director says, what's she doing? And the assistant says, not answering him. So I hope all the people, men and women, know that when a woman's not answering you and you've insulted her, there's a whirlwind going on inside her head.
Yeah, there is.
So I hope that's clear. But this is the other level that I've done in Frida, I've done across. It's the way that I think. It's not something I tack on. It's how I see things. That little girl wanting to go to Hollywood, and she's being brought home by the policeman in that car in the most depressed neighborhood. It's supposed to be East Toledo, but it's a neighborhood in Savannah.
This is after the barbershop, yeah.
Yeah, and she starts to makes gingerbread houses of light as she starts to hear the sounds of really classic Hollywood, the golden 30s. Because her dad, we don't have this scene. We did have it, but I didn't use it. But he used to bring her to the movies all the time. They would go at intermission so they didn't have to pay. So she would see these Fred Astaire films and Shirley Temple films, and she would see all the great Hollywood stuff with her dad. you know.
So they would second act the films.
Absolutely. It's a little, you know, I felt when I read the book, you had a Paper Moon feeling with the dad.
It did. It really did. It felt very much like that. Very much like that. Carlos Garza says he loved the score by Elliot Goldenthal. Elliot. The tone and instrumentations, help tie the locations and times in the film. What direction did you give him to get the score you were looking for?
Well, Elle, are you around?
I knew you would do that.
Okay. Elliot's score, just for all of you to know, on October 2nd, go to iTunes or Apple, because you can download it, buy it. It's not even expensive. I heard it yesterday, and I just wrote some liner notes for the album. What I think he had to do, what I had to do, which is it's 80 years of a person's life, so it's many decades. We never say 1965. We never say any of that. The cars, the hair, the clothing, the music. So what Elliot's so brilliant at, and I've done all my films with him and most of my theater, most of it, musicals, operas we've done together, and we lived together 35 years. So we have shorthand. I think right at the beginning, I was shocked when I heard the first notes of music when he started to score the film, that twang of the electric guitar. He used the guitar as the soul of America, like the Greyhound bus. He used that electric guitar. Yeah, here, could you come here for a second? Just say hi, because this is the composer.
Hello. Hi, Elliot.
We're talking to a lot of people, and somebody there is asking a question of how we work together on the music. Can you answer that?
Well, it changes every time. Every project demands.
Lower your head. Lower your
head.
Okay.
He's like, let me get a chair.
Sit down for a second. 2 for 1, by the way.
I love this.
Every project is a new ball game, and you have to start from scratch. You can say what you want as the process is going along, but till it's editing, until I see the reaction of the performers, the thoughts behind the eyes of the actors, when I feel the rhythm of the editing and the feeling of location, I don't really, everything that I might have supposed before is nullified, because in the moment, when I see the final edit, that's when everything comes alive for me.
And one of the things that, if people do get the album, because I was weeping yesterday, I told them that I just had them, with AirPods, and I started to cry deeply, because without all the yapping and the imagery, I could feel the music, and it's there, it's all there. I love the score as well, but it was just listening to it. He expands on it a little bit. And then we got to what he calls Bella's Hat, a cue called Bella's Hat. Is that funk? What is that period? What would you call that?
Well, you know, it's sort of the James Brown period.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be funk.
Yeah. You know, before Bootsy Collins, anyway. But yeah, that's the way New York City sounded to me. It had funk coming from every corner, and also it had free jazz in the park.
So all that's Elliot. All of it.
So I was just remembering actually how it sounded to me. I grew up in New York, you know, so I remember the 70s, 60s very well. You know?
Also, one thing that I think is quite amazing, and this is the one thing I did say: find a theme, you know, that you can then expand or make by changing the orchestration. Like, isn't the Father's theme in the car, which is sort of that using
Well, it had the feeling of the music from the hot club of France, which
right.
is a period with Django Reinhardt, the guitarist, made beautiful music from 1931 to like 1949.
And that's in the car.
And that had the feeling of the period, yet not quite America. Something Paris. The idea, the dream of traveling, and also when I played it, when I composed it for Julie, she just smiled.
Yeah, I just smiled.
So I said, it must be right. When she dances and when she smiles, I know it's right. When she cries, I know it's right. When she says, that's interesting, I know it's wrong.
So, but what I wanted to say about the melody that he had there, you'll when you hear the album or see the movie again, you'll see how he used it over and over in ways like for the dance, right? In the 50th birthday party, slowed down as a romantic.
Well, Julie had a temp track there of Chet Baker playing trumpet. And it was very, very romantic and yet sophisticated.
Right.
So I used a tune that we heard before, the up-tempo Hot Club of France theme. I slowed it down, and it became a romantic, a very intimate place for
slow dance.
Yeah, for her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dance with two boyfriends at the time.
Well, this has been a treat. We hardly ever interview a filmmaker who has her composer in the room. So thank you for popping in, Elliot. We appreciate you.
Her composer was in the basement. That I'm now going down.
You're going back to the basement. Okay.
Clean myself up. Okay.
Get down.
Bye, Elliot. That was wonderful. I love that. We never have that.
Well, that's his first interview, so that was nice.
That was great. He's great at it. You guys should do it more
But
often.
you person who loves the music, I love you, because to me, Elliot's music, critics, they don't hear it well enough, you know. But
well, I'm a critic, and I hear it very well.
He did win the Academy Award for Frida, and that was my movie. So Elliot won the Academy Award on my film, even though he's done a lot of Batmans and, you know, Alien 3 and all of that. Yeah.
Snaps for Elliot.
Right.
All right, girl, we're going to switch gears. There's a question about how do you feel this film improves the dialogue around reproductive rights, the pay equity gap, and convincing the final states to ratify the ERA?
Well, I can't answer that because I'm not in the know exactly, but I would think everybody watching this would say, oh, come on, hello, as Gloria goes, hello. You know, I just can't imagine not ratifying the Equal Rights Amendment. As far as choice, which you and we were all talking about in the green room, to me, this is one of the biggest things in the movie because it was in the book. She dedicated her book to that English doctor who approved of her having an abortion when you know, you all saw the movie, so I don't have to repeat that. Mm-hmm. I wanted to not only show how horrible it was with the speak out, remember the speak out with the young girl saying that this high school cheerleader used a coat hanger. Now for us who went through this back then, pre-Roe v. Wade, it's almost old news, that scene. But it is not old news for young women and men right now because they haven't had to do that. And I'm afraid that there will be young women who will be frightened to get money from their parents or go to an abortionist, as she says, and they will try all kinds of means when they find out they're pregnant and there is no Planned Parenthood and it becomes illegal again. So there's a couple of things in the movie, like when the women in Ms. sign on the first issue of Ms. Magazine, I have had an abortion. We should all do that across America now. And we have said, and it should be not just I have had an abortion. What have you done in your life? What have you done in your life? When did you then have children that you felt you were ready to have? You know, I wish there could be a movement, so I'm going to give that to you. You're going to start that movement. But I think it's really critical. Let's get all the women that Trump ever dated, for instance. I should zip up my mouth. But
oh, girl, that's going to,
right.
ooh.
Okay,
don't get me started on him.
Okay,
ooh, that's a whole nother situation.
For me, the scene with Dolores Huerta in Houston, which I took liberties with because it didn't happen in Houston. So I said to Gloria, I knew that they had this terrific relationship and that Dolores was definitely anti-abortion. She went out. She was with the Right to Life versus Phyllis Schlafly group out there. They never did have that meeting, but I knew from the documentary about Dolores and from what I'd read that Gloria had inspired and influenced her about understanding that this is a woman's right to choose what to do with her own body. She should not have to be part of nationalizing a female body. This, whatever's going on with this as a political, tool, is nothing to do with religion or the truth or what they say. Otherwise, there would be no death penalty. There would be no guns, Second Amendment guns where you can kill people. There'd be no, fighting in a war. There would be no executions. There'd be nothing if the same people talk about life. I am pro-life. I am pro-life, and I'm pro for women to choose the life that they want and that they need. So this scene in Houston, Gloria said, I'm going to ask Dolores if it's okay. And she said yes. And then basically Gloria's attitude towards anything that wasn't to the perfectly exactly the way it happened was, if it has emotional truth, it's fine. So.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was wonderfully stated. I appreciate you for that. I apologize to those of you who have all of these questions. There's only so much time. I'm going to ask this one question, but I thank you all for typing your questions in. They were all great. Some of them Julie answered in some previous answers, so I'll just state that. But what I did want to leave you with this last question is, they wanted to know, what were the 3 key takeaways that you walked away with from this experience that improved your craft and that you will use to apply to your future projects?
Well, one was we couldn't get the money out of Hollywood for the film. So they were offering such puny, paltry bits of money. Because why? Because it's a woman's film? I don't know. We had Gloria Steinem bestseller. We had myself and Julianne Moore attached. So we stuck to our guns. Gloria went to an incredible philanthropist who gives money to women's causes around the world. And he loved Gloria. They loved this partnership. The husband and wife loved Gloria, really liked the script a lot, liked my work, and said, how much do you want? So we did this movie not for profit. That's one takeaway, that there are other ways to get money to make a movie. Now, they don't want their names known because they don't want to do movies. They wanted to do this movie. And had we been in movie theaters and any recoupment, they were giving the money to women's causes. They didn't care about recouping. That kind of spirit and generosity is a big takeaway. The other is what Gloria taught me, and that is really about, she's a bit of a hopeaholic. So I try to get rid of all my negatives, the negative things I'm feeling right now. And I just try to see what she sees, which is the upside of the downside. As far as working, the craft, I worked with some new people. So I had a great new production designer, Kim Jennings, a new editor, Sabine Hoffman. I worked with my wonderful DP, Rodrigo Prieto, who had done Frida, Midsummer Night's Dream, all those Scorsese films, and this. So I always learn from my collaborators. Sandy Powell did the costumes. She had done The Tempest. She's multiple Academy Award winning. She also does the Scorsese. And she said, Julie, I want to do the Glorias. I said, no, we can't afford you on this one. Forget it. She said, Scorsese, it's all suits. There's no women. There's just a few wife scenes. This is all women. I get to do, look at Bette Midler's costumes, will you? So, you learn about speed, you learn about economy, you learn about when you write a script, you have to give up some of your babies because we didn't have time or money. So the taxi drivers, they got cut. There's lots of things that you learn. I also learned a lot about how to shoot cars and traveling buses because we were in Savannah for 90% of the show. So we used a lot of green screen and I had never done that before. So there were a lot of technical things I had to learn.
Well, Julie Taymor, language matters, truth matters, and history matters. And the last time that we spoke, you said the truth shall set you free, but first it will piss you off.
That's
and
correct.
We are real pissed off right now. So I encourage and implore everyone to get out there and vote because your vote does matter. And I also want to say this quote from Gloria Steinem, which I believe is apropos to both of you. God may be in the details, but goddess is in the connections. And you two goddesses, Gloria Steinem and Julie Taymor, have connected us with a beautiful cinematic piece called The Glorias. You guys, it will be streaming via Amazon Prime on September 30th, which is tomorrow. So
And
make
other
sure,
platforms, and other platforms.
and other platforms as well, but you can see it on Amazon Prime. But make sure that you get your ticket, get you some popcorn, grab some other women and watch this, grab some men and watch it. And Film Independent wants to take the time to thank Miss Julie Taymor for taking time out of her day in Martha's Vineyard to speak with us about the Glorias. Thank you, Miss Julie.
Oh my God, thank you, Shenzi. It's been a true pleasure.
And I am your moderator, Carla Renata, the Curvy Critic. I'll see y'all next time. Bye.
Bye-bye. Mwah.